And we are recording so that those colleagues of ours that may not be able to attend now can listen in. Often a lot of the learning that we're doing is just we sign up for things, we know we'll get the recordings, and the learning continues. So that's just a great way to be in this world. If anyone is new to Zoom, we really love that you will interact with the reactions on the right-hand side. We are an informal group, so anytime you want to stop and turn your mic on and share or use the chat, please do so. I'll try to keep a good eye on it. And if not, just like, hey, Brenda, and share what you'd like to share. That would be great. Don't be shy about that. I'm coming in from Guelph, Ontario, which is about an hour west of Toronto. And I'm on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat peoples. And, you know, one of the things I always do when I'm either traveling or working with different groups of people is share that whosland.ca is a website that you can go to that is a interactive map, and it allows you to explore a lot of the traditional territories that you might be visiting, or when you're working with other educators and students, you can get a lot of content there, teachings of elders, videos of students, Indigenous students, and just a great primary resource if you are doing land acknowledgements in your buildings. I also love the video land acknowledgements. I think that would be a great media literacy project for students in schools, very engaging. So that idea of personalizing. So please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you are coming in from. And also the roles that you hold in your spaces where you are. I'll take a minute to let you know, to let you do that while I put my contact information there. Welcome back, Nicole. Great. We have some secondees here. Yes, Beth is from near you, right? I think I first met Beth on Twitter, actually, and then I believe we met up face to face at an ed camp. I'm not sure, it may have been at your school. I know Aviva was part of the organizing committee of that, so it was a really good ed camp, actually. We have folks from Whitby, another TDS beer, and Nicole, Niagara Catholic, right? Yes, okay. Yeah, a lot of Bring It Together, a lot of other places, Echo, yes, our paths have crossed a lot, so it's lovely to see you here. Thank you for being here. Awesome. So our presentation today, our workshop series has been brought to you by OECM, the consortium that does a lot of purchasing for different districts in Ontario. But it's been offered widely to any educators, not just Ontario educators. So that's been really nice. Basically, we have been talking about collaboration, digital tools for collaboration. And then we've talked about in our second session, how to engage student voice and community voice. And in this last session, we're thinking about one of my absolute favorite things, and that is finding authentic voices, audiences for learning, and the impact that that has on engagement for our students. And I think even for ourselves, you know, as educators, we're in that world as well, being able to share our learning out widely. And so today I hope that what we can do is, as it says on the slide there, explore examples of possibilities for engaging learning for students, share examples. I have brought some of my favorites about ways to empower learning through authentic audience. But I really know, just like I said, I think I'm going to learn as much from you, or I hope to, as much from you as you might learn from me, because I know there'll be lots of different things that people are working on all across the province. So let's get sharing today and really talk about those that we're engaged in, or maybe things we've heard about, or maybe some ideas that come out of some of the examples that are shared. And as a community of learners, I hope that we can keep these agreements in mind, that all our questions are valuable and welcomed, that we recognize that all of the differences that we hold really enrich our space together and our learning, and that you are the expert in your experience, your lived experience. So I statements, we welcome those. So we've been operating on those principles, and I hope we can just keep that going. There is a prize at the end. Congratulations, Inihal and Nicole, our previous winners. And so we'll have a draw, and then I have a short survey that I'm going to ask you to please complete. And thanks to our sponsor, Intel, we have that. So let's do just a check-in. We have done a check-in in a variety of ways, and one version we used was a waterfall chat that people liked last time. So let's do that again. And what I'm going to ask you to do is think about a glow that's happened for you recently, professionally or personally, and a grow or a grow. So you might focus on one or the other or both. And we're going to ask you to add it in the chat, but we're going to ask you not to hit enter. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to get together, just to check in about how it's been going for you, a glow and a grow, and then I'll let you know when to press enter, and our chat will waterfall, and then we'll have a chance to check in with everybody. Go for it. All right, everybody. Anybody need more time? Yep. Okay, good. Lots of glows and grows. This is a good thing. Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, when you're sort of wrapped up. Okay, go. We'll just enter and put your glows and grows in there.
Happy birthday, Nicole.
Oh yeah, happy birthday, Nicole. All right.
It was on 2/22.
Oh my gosh, that's my husband's birthday too. So we were talking about 02, 22, 20, 22, and how neat that was. Cool.
And I made a joke with my students. I was 22 plus 22.
Oh, very good. Very good. Oh, nice, Beth, to see your staff really having a reflective moment there, and your staff member changing up. I don't know if you want to say any more about that. That must have felt really good.
Yeah, well, we've been doing a lot of work about asset lens and just trying to focus on what more than just what we see. So a teacher typically would notice student behavior and say, oh, they're just so lazy and blah, blah, blah. And it was actually a student success person who said that. And then that person stopped and said, wait a minute. No, what I mean is that right now the student is struggling to demonstrate blah, blah, blah. So my next move is to help them demonstrate blah, blah, blah. So just getting rid of those labels was in live time. I saw it happen.
Super. Oh man, it's nice. All right, what else? What else would people like to expand on? Anyone? Oh yeah, being with students again, Maureen, nice. Yeah, connections related to identity.
Can I ask Tao a question? Have you because we're everybody's doing de-streamed math, right? Have you guys read The Thinking Classroom by Peter Liljedahl? Okay.
Yeah. We're heavily using him, and he's been providing PD sessions to our teachers, elementary and secondary. So
Yes, us
heavily.
Too, yeah.
A great resource.
Yeah, nice. You wouldn't happen to be attending the Learning Forward Ontario talk about de-streaming math tonight, would you, at 7 p.m.? You are. Okay. I'm on that board, so I thought that would be valuable for you to attend. Awesome. Okay. You might be part of the panel. I haven't been, no, okay. I haven't been involved with organizing much of it, so that's great. Good to see that everybody's having lots of glows and grows. Awesome. All right. So we have been kind of talking about, the last time we spoke, we were talking about student voice, and we were talking about that continuum of, consulting, allowing students to express themselves, and then that other, the top of the continuum where we would hope students could take action and show some leadership. And so one of my favorite ways to have done that is around some authentic audiences. But first, what I would like you to do is to think about for yourself, and it doesn't have to be a school experience like what we're seeing here as students are in a lab, but can you think about a really great experience you've had learning and what that looked like for you and who was involved with that? And maybe why it was great for you. So think about maybe first yourself as a learner, try and find something there. But sometimes teachers also think of a really great learning experience that they were involved with students, and they identify really deeply around that. So take a couple of minutes to think about that. And what was it like for you? What happened? Who was involved and how did it impact you? Okay, so just think about that for a couple minutes. Then I'm going to ask you to share just some highlights about what that might be, that was. So you can either grab the mic or you can share that in the chat. Give you another minute to kind of get a handle on what that was. Okay. Got some thoughts? Grab the mic if you'd like to tell us a little bit about that, or share in the chat.
Brenda, can you just restate the thought prompt? I confess I just got distracted by a teacher in distress.
Oh, okay. Are they okay?
No, Apply to Ed has crashed and postings closed and now they can't get in. So no, they're not okay. I just had to.
You had to put out a fire there. Oh my gosh.
I did. I'm
Yes,
just
okay.
keeping people calm. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was righteously distracted.
Okay, no problem. So think about a really great experience you've had as a learner, and um, think about, well, how did that feel? What was it about? What happened? And how did it feel for you? And who was involved with that? And if there was any, if you could explain sort of what was the impact for you? Any one of those things to kind of reflect on.
Brenda, I'm going to jump in.
Okay, Maureen, share.
I'm going to be brave here.
Yes,
So
please.
let's go back about 20 years to math camp with Brenda Sherry and Peter Skillen. And I think I'm where I am today because of my first encounter with you at math camp and Dr. Marion Small. But it was really the little working group I had with you and Peter that really changed my way of thinking about how to do math with kids, how to learn math with kids, how to be with kids with math, and really math is everywhere. So kudos to Peter and Brenda. And
Wow. And I didn't even pay you to say that, Maureen.
I know, there you go. But I have such
Wow.
fond memories of math camp. I'd never
Yeah.
been before, left my children and family, and
We were away.
volleyball too at the court. We played
Yeah,
volleyball and we did math. So
right. We were away. We were being a little pampered there in a nice setting, and it was
Yes.
great to meet new people. And oh yeah, great example. Okay, super.
positive.
All right. Thanks for that memory. That's awesome. I jumped back there with you. That was quite a few years ago too. Who else would like to share? Nicole and then Ineha. You want to go first?
Do you want to go any else?
It's your birthday. You should go first.
No, well, it's done.
Nicole, you had your hand up before me. You go first.
Okay. Okay, so I still to this day, as much math training as I take, I still don't consider myself a competent math teacher. But I was teaching on reserve probably about 6 years ago now. And my kids were very, very low. They were supposed to be in grade 5. And I realized that I just had to teach adding and subtracting. And then maybe if we were lucky, we'd get to multiplying by the end of the year. And I was working on like, I'm blanking. But anyways, like up to 4 numbers, up to 5 numbers. We played around with 6 numbers. And my kids started shouting out numbers. And I was kind of like, what are they doing? And then the one kid told me, hey, that's your status number. That's your treaty number. So then we started this thing every day where we would have treaty math. And so sometimes people wanted to be like twins, and we would put their 2 numbers together, and then we would add or subtract them with somebody else. And we were like creating people. And it just became personal, and they made it themselves. And it was just like they wanted to do treaty math every day. So we kind of did that as our warm up. So, I met the kids where they were, and I'm happy that it worked for months. So that was great to get away from being the fearful math teacher and like let my kids be the teachers. So anyways.
Awesome. Wow. Terrific. Thank you for sharing that. Real life application of math. Not always easy. Okay, Inihal. What's your story?
I guess I have 2 to share actually. One, if that's okay.
Yes.
The first one is again, it's as a classroom teacher in a middle school, Scarborough. So it was sort of a low socioeconomic sort of neighborhood, and we would always go visit other schools as for maker spaces and things like that, and always come back, and the students would always go, oh, I wish, we wish we had things like that. And so being a grade 7, 8 teacher, being a science teacher, we kind of, gave the reins to the students and said, you know, what do you want? Like, how do you want to do this? What do you envision? If you could imagine, create, design, what would it look like? And just sort of, I think, as an educator, really the most meaningful experiences for me have been when I've let go of any kind of control and be open to all kinds of uncertainties. And I remember speaking to my administrator when we moved from like a specialist model to a core model, and I was totally adamant that that was just the wrong way to go. But and I always tell him this: the most meaningful years of my time in the classroom was when you kind of let go of what you know and embark on the unknown, right?
Mhm.
So that's always been something that I've valued and learned. And as an admin, I think the other experience was during my PQP. My instructor, Karen, I still keep in touch with her, and the way she engaged in conversations with adults, and having the moment where she would always, she comes from a coaching background, so she would always rephrase things as a question and offer the time for reflection and just being comfortable in the silence until you feel like you can respond, and giving us the time. And I think I've taken that into my role as an administrator, is to not have those answers, be open to what may come, pose questions, and just sit in the discomfort of silence. So
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I don't know if you remember that Appreciative Leadership book that I shared, and you would love it. It's all about defining your questions and how your questions share with staff your values, and yet puts the onus on them. So I think you would really, if you ever have time to read that one, it's awesome.
I think it's in my Amazon cart.
Is it? Oh yeah. You just
After
need a
our last
sabbatical.
session.
You just need a sabbatical now, a reading sabbatical, so you can get to everything. I'm getting street data. It's coming next week, so I'll be listening to your recordings as I'm reading that. Tao, do you have something you'd like to share?
Sure. So growing up, I didn't have a great experience in school. So I was trying to think, do I have anything to share that I can remember from my schooling? Nothing that I'd like to share
Okay.
that
Yeah.
doesn't make me appreciate where I'm at. So then I think about my career. So I've been teaching for 20 years, and um, I've come to realize that you need to be surrounded by people that share the same passions as you. But it's not just the passion, it's the willingness to be open and flexible, and trust that the students are capable.
Mhm.
So I started my career in a trade kind of school, so we call it an adaptive school in Ottawa, and I was a very textbook worksheet kind of teacher starting out, and I struggled teaching math to these kids that just didn't learn that way. And it made me so frustrated because I would plan these very involved lessons, and then I went to the kids' tech classes, and I saw them in painting and decorating, in cooking, in auto mechanics, and they were different children. And seeing them do basically the same concepts I was teaching in math class in their tech classes made me realize that hands-on, real concrete, that personal connection that their trades teachers had with them was what I was missing in my classroom. So I value the cross-curricular work. And I try as much as possible to incorporate that into my math classes. And right now I'm at my board trying to be a D-Stream instructional coach, but I'm dealing with a lot of people who are hesitant about like really taking these on, and
Yeah.
it's frustrating, but I don't know, I feel like it's not moving fast enough for these kids.
Yeah. There's an urgency around it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when we know what we need in terms of STEM. You know, we need these young people to lead us into a lot of innovation in the future, and we want really, you know, I think of what McMaster, I believe it's McMaster, how they've changed up their medical, um, like their medical training to not just include science stars, but also all the other kinds of skills we need to be creative, to be humanistic, to be kind, to be empathetic. Like we need that. We need the whole person. So we need a lot of the people. We need everyone's voice in there in the future. So you're right. This is such an urgency around it. Okay. Well, I too had that realization, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a little while. And Beth's contribution here, I don't know if she has a mic right now, but so again, her message here about her physics teacher turning over what we've heard from everybody, turning over that learning to you, Beth, and giving you the checklist, giving you some control about what you know and what you don't know. And it sounds simple, doesn't it? Like the kinds of things that he might be giving you.
Well, he was a man ahead of his time, because he made physics not just for smart people, but for people who you just had to be honest with what you didn't know, and then just commit to learning those things. And so it was scaffolded, and he did that long before it was fashionable.
Fashionable, yeah, cool. I've just had a flashback to my biology class in grade 11. I think it was grade 11, where I was just afraid to say things weren't working out in my experiments and what was going on, you know, like I just wanted them to work and they weren't working. And I was too shy about speaking up about, you know, those mistakes. So I think we've come a long way in understanding what learning is. So keep your experience in mind. Have we heard from everybody? Yes, I believe we have. Didn't miss anyone. Okay. Keep your experience in mind. And when we talk about deeper learning in Ontario, especially, we have a discussion document out. And when I was at the ministry, it was just launching. So it was pretty cool to be there for a couple of years when people were talking about this. But the research really comes from psychology and from James Pellegrino and others. And we look at deeper learning to be in a couple of different ways. I guess there's many ways people look at it, but in terms of cognitive psychology, it's often referred to as a balance between these domains. So in some kinds of experiences that we have learning, if this balance is a little askew, so if we're so far focused on cognitive skills and not ignoring inter and intrapersonal skills, we can have a very boring or non-impactful kind of learning experience. And if we think of these skills, dispositions, and attitudes, and we think about those, the kinds of experiences we have that are sort of the sweet spot, they have a combination of these things, we tend to have a deeper experience. And we have learning that transfers. That's the other element. So that we're not just learning it temporarily, but we're learning it and we can transfer it to other domains. Often people will share as their deep experience, actually something like Maureen shared, camp, okay? Where they go, they have a little uncertainty about it, but they learn lots of new things. There is a really nice feeling of community. They have time to reflect. You know, other things are sports teams often come up as a deep learning experience because it's a sweet spot. Theater productions, people who are involved in the arts, right? Okay, I see some nodding. My husband is still connected with his students. They're having babies and getting married, and like some of the experiences they had through that time were so impactful and they stick with you. That's another indication, you know, learning that sticks, as Fullan says. And so when you think about what that looks like, in the domains, you can sort of the middle column here sort of identifies the skills, dispositions, and attitudes we need. And then the final piece is what are teachers, what is the learning experience a teacher is going to create that allows lots of thinking and talking about thinking and student choice and reflection, independence. I think you've all nailed those in your description of your important experience, and also being challenged at the right level, right? And when you can personally relate to the learning you're doing, when it isn't relevant to what's happening in your world. So these are just some things to keep in mind. And the Ontario, Alberta, and New Brunswick led sort of a panel all across the ministers of education across our country. And they sort of determined that these were competencies that would allow us to get at those domains, right? And so it really doesn't matter which way you go at it, whether you think about it as the 3 clouds, or whether you think about it in terms of some of these great, categories. If you're trying as a teacher to design experiences around these, you're likely to try and get students in that sweet spot where it's a little deeper for them. So when I started to learn about this, my background was psychology, and also I had a big interest in the arts. And so what I started to hear reminded me so much of what Elliot Eisner and some of the arts and education gurus were talking about. They were saying that, knowledge is private, right? Constructivism means that we learn based on dissonance, et cetera, and new information, and our schema has to adjust, and that's how we learn. That's internal. We can't know what that is inside a student's head. But it's when we give it social value and our thinking becomes public that we have the opportunity to represent other ways of knowing and engage in discussion with others, right? So that was sort of pretty cool background. I started to think about deeper learning from that point of view. Yeah, there's your interpersonal and your intrapersonal pieces coming together with what you know. And then, further down the line, I started to code with students in about the early 2000s. And, I learned about this guy, Seymour Papert, and he took constructivism a little step further, and he created this term called constructionism. And that is, we learn by doing, but we learn even better if we can make things and then talk to people about the thinking we've done as we make those. To me, that was just like the arts. Oh yeah, it's making a public statement about our learning. So, and this is not new. None of this is new. This is like, the arts have been around for ages, and I think about my makerspaces now. This is my classroom in 1989 in Toronto District. I fortunately, lucky for me, started teaching in the late 80s, 87. We were all focused on play, student-centered learning, hands-on learning. So, and the arts and the value about that. I don't think I knew back then as I started, I didn't know maybe the cognitive pieces, the psychology around all that. I was still learning that. But, I knew that students really were so engaged when they were creating things for each other and for a school audience. At that time, it was just a school audience. I didn't have that computer portal in my classroom. I also had 2 boys, one standing on the block there on the left and one behind the girl who's going like this. They were involved with improv and theater. And so I was really seeing this for them, how impactful this was on their learning. So that was pretty awesome. And so, when I think about this deeper learning and what it does for our students is that there seems to be, I was always watching Steve as an arts teacher, and, things were project-based. They were creating for real, authentic audiences. It was a community of learners. He has to take all students at all levels. And, the person who's pulling the curtain up has to be just as important as the other people in the project, right? Very valued for contributions. what you're saying, Beth, right? Like other ways of knowing, right? And being and doing, not just written words alone, for sure. And you know what? Fullen's deeper learning comes from that same research group that, brought out the National Research Council and all of that. He was one of our advisors at the ministry at the time when that discussion document was released. So you can see where he was going with his new pedagogies for deeper learning, for sure. It's also disciplinary thinking, right? You become an actor, you become a director, you become a prop master, you become a musician. And we talk about that in math. You become a mathematician. Seymour Papert was a mathematician who worked with Piaget. And so he was very highly focused on how students learn mathematics and that idea that the students should feel like a mathematician and do the work of mathematicians. So all those things are sort of built in. This picture is a part of a project that I'll tell you about a little bit later. And Maureen's known me for so long, she's probably heard this story before, but I apologize in advance, Maureen. So, I would like you to pause right now and think about, who, when you think of this, we can be asking ourselves, who's the audience for the learning, right? Because, if the teacher is the only audience for the learning, is that the most engaging thing that we can bring for our students? Or we can get a little bit further. If our peers are the audience for the learning, we get a little bit more engagement. Or is our school or community the audience for the learning, or is it the world? Beth, your hand's up. Can you share?
Yeah, well, I just want to, just to your point, Brenda, when we assign assignments and then we say to the students, you need to submit your assignment to me, I think we set up these structures that say, I'm the smart person, you lowly, uneducated person, you're going to have to submit and bow to me and somehow prove to me that you're smart. And by the way, I'm already smart. And the more and more I think about it, that's such an artificial audience for today's world, because we don't really need to go through a smart person to communicate. I can go to Instagram, I can go to Twitter, I can go to Snapchat, I can be a publisher right away. And we see all kinds of people who are communicating, creating, and they don't need to go through this artificial filter that determines whether or not they can communicate or not. So I think there has to be a real challenge to the actual activities that we offer to students. And I really wonder about, this might sound dramatic, but I wonder about what we do with the whole term academic writing. Like we think that academic writing is so important. And I wonder if we really need to think about thinking as being important and then different ways of communicating that. But like the academic paper, is it really the most authentic way of demonstrating my learning? What do you think?
Well, while I respect, okay, so I remember a great book I read a bunch of years ago, a prof from Harvard, I think he was from, Clay Shirky. He wrote a book called Here Comes Everybody, okay? And it was right around the time that blogging started. And he would say, the good thing about the internet is that everyone can publish. The bad thing about the internet is everyone can publish. And that idea that here comes everybody. So everybody can come in and say what they want to say. So I totally agree with you, because what we can do is we can democratize the knowledge so that there aren't just a few holding, giving us like it used to be that other people decided what to publish and then they filtered for us and then we had that. Nowadays, it's the opposite. Everyone can publish. We need to filter. We need to understand which voices we need to listen to and which ones might be problematic. And that is the critical thinking piece, right? And so such a good point you raise.
And
it
what I'm
opens-
noticing is that right now, we're looking at teachers applying for positions of responsibility and everything like that. And so they're creating these academic documents, and their actual capacity to communicate in clear writing, like they're very, very academic, and they have exquisite academic prose, but it's all gobbledygook. It just sounds so fake.
Right.
So it's almost like they need to unlearn that. Anyway, that's just my current little pet peeve right now. Just wondering if others are noticing that.
Anyone else want to jump in? One thing it brings me of mind, what you're saying too, is the whole field of data visualization and how that's transforming how we experience information. So, you know, I relate to what you're saying about it not being the best communication for everyone, those kinds of documents. So you have to rethink that. Yeah. It's a good point you raise. So how are your students sharing their learning? What kinds of things are you doing before I launch into some examples that I have? What's going on in your buildings? Have you seen something that intrigued you that might be a little different than what you're doing? And Maureen, I see your point there. Yeah, it's more than just show what you know. It's about exploring, creating with others. Yeah. And really, what I love about co-construction is we don't really know what each other means by things until we create something together, right? That really unpacks it. So feel free to grab the mic or jump into the chat. What are you seeing? Yeah, think alouds, demonstrations. Yeah, great.
I'm new to Zoom, so I don't know how to put your hand up.
Oh, okay, and under reactions, do you have reactions at the bottom or top of your screen?
Yes,
And when you
but I
click
only
that,
have like a clapping hand, a thumbs up.
and below
Joy?
that, is there a button that says raise hand?
Oh my goodness, yes.
It's a little hidden.
I-
Yeah, got it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Now that you've
Okay.
raised your hand.
So as Nicole mentioned earlier, we do Thinking Classroom, which is where the kids work up at the whiteboards.
Yeah,
And when they're working in random groups of usually 3. So their collaboration together not only is for themselves, but also the other kids around the room. So encouraging groups that might be struggling with the problem to look at other people's thinking supports their thinking. So that whole talk of copying is a discussion that you have to have. It's not copying, it's using others' ideas to produce new ones for yourself, or to recall other experiences or other memories that you have with that concept. Um, and then with the consolidation piece at the end, trying to uh, connect everyone's kind of understanding.
right.
And then also think about the metacognition required to access and solve those problems and questions that they ask themselves. And um, when I do an assessment, I try to include that. So like, what advice would you give a student who might be learning this concept? What strategies would you have, or what, I don't know, what
Nice.
misconceptions but they can encounter that you could support them through?
Nice. That allows them to tell a little bit back through their thinking and where they came along. Nice. I like that. Yeah. Other things in the chat I'm seeing, like all of Michael Fullen's stuff. Yeah. Around talking less, questions over answers. Love it. Demonstrations, project-based learning, student-led inquiry. Yeah. One of my favorite books ever by Ron Richard is Making Thinking Visible. And I think that was from Harvard. And some of the protocols in there are just like so good. And even for us as adults, you know, like one of my favorite ones is I used to think, now I think. It is just the simplest way to uncover shifts in thinking, and I use it all the time. So awesome. Just a lot of those kinds of things. So I sort of have like a bunch to share, and I knew we would be running out of time. Look at that. It's already 5:17. And this conversation is so important. So I will show you, I'll be sure to share all the links in the slide deck, so you will have everything, but I will quickly go through here. And I would love it if you start to think of some things that resonate with you. Let's put them in the chat and share some of the things that you're thinking about. So we mentioned last time Your Voice is Power, which is yourvoicespower.ca, which is it's a way to tie learning about coding and programming to music and equity issues. And so students will be challenged in a kind of a contest with all kinds of embedded curriculum for the teacher to use, to create their own unique piece and share it with the world. And a lot of this year's project will be also supported. We will have a lot of Indigenous artists that will be creating beats, and it's all about hip hop. So very engaging for kids, grade 6 and up. Taking It Global, TIG Ed, is an organization that I work with, and they have a lot of global projects that teachers can jump into. I'll talk a little bit more about some of those later. I've been involved with Girls Who Game, which is actually using Minecraft in the classroom around the UNESCO goals and the Sustainable Development Goals to challenge students to think about their future in a different way. And they have a challenge every year, a global challenge that they create for students all over the world. So that might be a way for you to find an audience for learning. Nicole, I really wanted to make sure, I'm not sure if you're still on the call here, but I've been involved with Taking It Global, a project called Code to Learn. Dr. Ruth Beatty, Dr. Ruth Beatty at Lakehead University has been involved for about 9 years with Indigenous ways of knowing mathematics. And so in her program, they bring in elders from communities, local communities, to do the teaching. And we've taken it one step further with Ruth over the last couple of years, 3 years, I think, where students work on loom beading, finger weaving, medallions. We're taking on medallions this year. The elders come in and do the teaching, and then students learn Lynx coding software, and they program digital versions of the creations that they're making. So again, kind of taking that traditional knowledge and adding a coding twist to it. So that's a fantastic one. Another one, I started in on global projects with IRN, the International Education and Resource Network. It started in 1988, if you can believe it. And they used to do global projects via discussion board, okay? So 3 that I really love in my years in the classroom is one, Art Miles. And so with that project, you get paired with a class somewhere else in the world, and you and your other class, in my case, at Edward Johnson, it was a grade 6 class pictured here. And we were matched up with a class in Japan, and we decided a theme. And our class in Japan started half the mural, and they painted it, and then they shipped it off to us, and with all the paints and everything. And we looked at their work, and we'd been talking to them over online a little bit over the period of time. And we created the other half of the mural with our CN Tower. And we were our theme was our local environment. And so we were kind of thinking about our province and how we would share that with others. And then we shipped it back, and it was posted in an international conference over there. So that idea of being art, global citizenship, and that idea of the audience across the world was just amazing. The Teddy Bear Project, which I used to do by email, and then all of a sudden blogs came along, thank goodness. And so we started a blog. So I did that one with Japan, with San Diego, and with Australia. So this is the year of the partnership with Australia. That's Koalaloo. Koalaloo came to us from Australia. We sent our own Maple, our teddy bear, over there, and our students wrote to each other about what the bears were doing in their visiting country. And so that was another really nice, way to learn to read and write. And blogging, I couldn't believe what my grade twos learned about blogging. It was amazing. And then the Machinto Peace Project is another one, which is like a global read aloud, I guess. You sign up for that project, you read the story together, and then you're corresponding with other classes that are set up. So Iron is tried and true. They have safe forums if that's the way you communicate, but teachers, you can also create your own projects under that network. Really, really, really good. The other project that turned me on to digital storytelling through Iron is My Hero. So if you go on to the Iron website, or even just My Hero, I think has its own site, your students investigate heroes in their life, and they have all kinds of video and stories online that students have written and films that people have created around wide categories of heroes. And then your students are writing to be posted. So that was really engaging for my grade fives and up. And then I learned about digital storytelling. So when I was an itinerant tech coach, I was given some funding, and they said, let's do something with our gifted classrooms at that time. I said, well, let's give them cameras. Let's talk about digital storytelling. Let's pick a theme. And then we went to Steve's school, because his high school in Erin has a actual theater. So those are his drama students in grade 12, in welcoming a busload of grades 4 to 7, I guess they were 5 to 8, grade 5s to 8s, and they were going to show their premieres of their films. So Steve's students are the paparazzi that are greeting these kids as they come off the bus and go into his school. And we did that for about 7 years, and we changed the theme each time. It became more student driven, the themes around that, but just like, again, that idea of the audience. And I think his kids there's a red carpet. I don't know if you can see that on the right side there. And they asked for autographs. It was really fun. A Kid's Guide to Canada. Kathy Beach from Peterborough started this one, teacher, and then the Digital Human Library started to take it on. But students can, look at this interactive map and then ask themselves, like, why aren't we on the map? And then they can decide what they would like to share about their community and put it on the map. Maybe your audience will be a community audience. A lot of us are having gardens, we're growing food, that kind of thing. This is authentic work that students can be doing. I'm going to just really zip. If you have not ever checked out Tina Zita's work, Maureen and Nihal will know Tina. I love what they do around selfies and like all about me, and transforming that into flat lays that kids are they're so into Instagram. And so this is one that Tina created all about her. And the students then ask questions around all these images and artifacts that she's chosen in this image and why they're important to her. And they learn about her through that. So just leveraging our students' love, and not just love, but they are so good at telling stories with images and sound, right? My son was a Foley artist. That's what he was trained as in film. And I just couldn't believe how, I don't know where he learned it. He just grew up in, knowing how to express himself with media like that in such a great way. Flipgrid. If you're allowed to use Flipgrid in your space, your students can begin by posting small, videos of themselves as they share their learning through video. But there is also Grid Pals, where you can connect through Flipgrid with a classroom around the world that is interested in the same thing. You can search by subject or by grade, and you can get connected with other teachers who want to learn together. The Global Read Aloud, maybe you've heard about, where Purnell Rip created this sort of like a global group of book club for young students, and they choose a book each year, and you can engage that way. How about Twitter? Like, I imagine this child who got a actual reply from Chris Hadfield, and how exciting that would be to have that experience. And if you've ever blogged, you know that it's pretty impossible to get strangers to read your blog, despite, the fears people had about blogging. I was like, anybody that was talking about, blogging being a scary thing for young children, I always thought, you can't have a blog because it's really hard to get people to read your blog. So you can join up with other classes in a program called Quad Blogging, and everybody takes a turn writing one month and being a responder or commenter the other months. So I am running out of time, but Mystery Skype, it's another way to have an excellent audience somewhere else. I have to wonder if that's actually going now. I don't know if Skype closed it down or not, but you could start it up yourself. And then I just want to finally point you towards Jennifer Cranenberg's work. She's in from Chatham, Kent, and I'll make sure that all the links to her TED Talks or TEDx Talks are there. But Jennifer started investigating food security with her grade 2s. And yeah, there's a Google version, I think, a Hangout version in NEL that I thought was developed, but you know, I feel like somebody in Ontario should pick it up again if Mystery Skype's gone. It's so good. Anyway, Jennifer's work was around starting with grade 2s and 3s, and they were investigating food security out of an issue that arose in their classroom because some of their students were using the food bank. She began to create art, visit the food bank, have math activities at the food bank, create art for the food bank. Then they began to grow their food. She had them the next year. And then the final year she had these grade 5s, they were using Google My Maps. And they discovered, as they looked at socioeconomic states of their community, they discovered that the most needy families had the furthest to walk or take a taxi to get their groceries. They were nearest the most expensive food sources. They could not get to the food sources that were more better priced. And so you know those little libraries that people have on their lawns where they put books in a little library. So those students in grade 5, 6, I think they were by then, decided they needed one of those. They needed a little free pantry. And so those students actually wrote to the mayor and did some community service work to make that happen. And now they have it. They have a little free pantry in Chatham, Kent, where families can, exchange dry goods in there. So just, so many, those were some of my favorites that I wanted to share, even though I could go on and on. Is there anything that I hope you will add any that you know of in the chat, and I will be sure to include them for others. Yeah, FSL, can you talk about that, Nicole?
Well, in FSL, like I'm the world's worst FSL teacher, but that's how I started.
I don't believe that, but you can say it if you want.
But the biggest thing is like, in order to get the kids interested, like they've got to, if you make it about them, that flat lay, I don't know, it's like, here. That would be amazing, because then it would be inquiry based, because like, how would you say that word in French? Let's add that to our vocabulary list. How do you pronounce it? How do we put it in a sentence? Which verb would we use? Blah, blah, blah. So I can see how it could be just like that one picture that student made could lead to so much more.
Yes. Okay. You'll love her PDFs. You'll be able to download them. She's done amazing work. She's a teacher librarian from Peel. She was she with TVO for a bit, or was she with the Ontario College of Teachers? I think she did a little secondment, but she's back in a school now this year. So she does amazing things. Okay, folks, I think we're over our time by 1 minute. And I want to do our wheel of names. And I also, if you had 1 minute, Nicole, I just wanted to, I wanted to let you know, well, let me stop the recording. Does anybody else have reflections or questions they want to share before I stop that recording?
Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, let me just stop that.